mine now.
Yeah, we're live on mine too now.
Hooray!
Hello, welcome.
Hello.
Welcome to my couch. We're live on my page and on Jamie Vasey Mortgage Jedi's page tonight, talking about real estate market in 2020 and our predictions for 2021. Welcome,
Yes.
Thank you for joining.
I have to say I'm a little disappointed. I'm the only one who wore the ugly Christmas llama sweater.
Honestly, that was a major fail because I do have the world's best Christmas sweater.
She does. It's a little, might be a little, well, it's nighttime viewing, so it'll be fine.
I think kids are in bed.
Just for introductions, I'm Sandy Hare from the Hare Real Estate Collective at Remax Real Estate Center.
I'm Rebecca Walker from the Hare Collective at Remax Real Estate Center.
That guy.
And I'm Jamie Vasey, Mortgage Jedi, mortgage broker for Guelph, KW, all of Ontario.
And I just want to say, first of all, that Sandy and I are not socially distanced and we're not masked because we have been working together this whole time.
Yeah.
And we are very much in each other's bubble and have been since the get-go.
The whole time.
So this is,
Yes.
we are being safe in terms of our bubble.
Yeah,
I think everybody knows that about you, that you guys are really
we kind of come. We come as a pair now.
Yes.
It is what it is. Cosmic forces. So 2020, there it was. This is it.
It happened.
This is the wrap.
Oh, hold on. Before we get to 2020, can I just give a huge shout out to the both of you and Rebecca as well as Sandy for really organizing that 12 days of giving that we just got through.
Yeah.
With all the local businesses. That was fantastic fun. Partnering with local businesses like that. And I know you did a lot of hard work, so thank you for involving me and that was awesome.
It was awesome, and we raised almost $5,000.
Wow. Kidsability.
Yeah.
We did it. It's a start of something. We have
awesome.
a little thank you video going out tomorrow on our social medias. We've been running on slow over here. Things have kind of slowed down, so we're kind of taking advantage of that, and everything's happening just at a slower pace. So watch for a little video on our social media with that tomorrow. Thank you, Jamie, and thanks for joining us and doing and co-signing our wacky ideas.
You know what?
It's nice to have someone in your corner like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, for the past few years, we've always tried to do something for Kidsability, right? Because it's something that's near and dear to both of us, or to all of us, actually. And so it's always nice to give back a little bit, especially after the year we've had.
Yeah, it was a nice I felt like it was a nice combination. Like, I know we had big ideas about scavenger hunts and things like that, and that could possibly happen in the future. But I think it was a beautiful combination of, supporting local, offering our social media as a platform, and also raising awareness that Kidsability hasn't been able to do their fundraising. Mm-hmm. So my hopes was that some people, and we even added a little QR code. I would say QRL. I'm 40 now. On the back of our card, our Christmas cards, inviting people to donate as well. So we're hoping that, maybe we squeaked it over, higher than 5,000. That'd be really great. So, but you can expect more calls from us, Mr. Vasey, about doing things for Kidsability in 2021. We have.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So that's anything else you want to talk about, Rebecca?
I just wanted to say thank you to Jamie for the 12 days of giving, because it really kind of started out as like a random thought while we were having beers at Fixed Gear one day. And I thought, okay, we could do this scavenger hunt type thing, but I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. And like on a Tuesday afternoon, a couple of pints in, I called up Mr. Jamie Vasey because I was like, that's the guy that's going to know about this.
Wait, was that a drunk style?
Maybe.
Well,
it's walkable.
Yes, it is. It is literally in my backyard for everybody who doesn't know. But it might have been a boozy working lunch.
It may or may not have been a drunk dial about a charity event. I mean,
and Jamie always answers our calls.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was totally on board, like from the very get-go. He was like, yeah, no, I see where you're going with this, and let's make that happen. And sat and just kind of brainstormed the whole idea, and collectively we came up with it in like a couple of hours, kind of how this was all going to go. And it was great.
It's hard to plan anything. Yeah. It's hard to plan anything this year. Like, I know we had some big ideas about it, and I know we can come around to those things again sometime, but it's hard to plan anything this year. So it's really great that you were flexible and we were flexible, and they kept the focus on kids' ability and the local businesses, which is great.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for being great.
And for being right here. Not just you.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. What a year though, right?
What a year.
Oof, it was a year. Yeah. So let's start out at the beginning, Jamie. So going back to like last December, going into January, how were you feeling the year was going to go?
I was reflecting a bit on that, and I think because every year now, this is probably the third or fourth year in a row that Sandy and I have done these kind of predictions for the next year.
Yeah, it's true.
And we're almost never right. Because I think last year we predicted it was going to be the year of the savvy buyer, that it was going to be the buyers who did the preparation, got ready, were really going to reap the benefits. And in many cases that was true, but I don't think we anticipated the revisiting of the 2016-2017 massive competition, massive over-asking, all of the things that we saw. Nobody predicted interest rates to be anywhere close to where they are right now.
No.
What is it right now? Like as of like today-ish?
So AAA lenders, all things being equal, you're going to see some really discount lenders who give low rates but not great service are going as low as variable rates at 0.99%.
Jesus. Okay.
But for the most part, to get the kind of mortgage you want, you look at 5-year fixed at 1.69.
Okay.
Whoa.
Yeah. So, and even alternate lenders. So if you have a bit of bruised credit, if you've had some, delinquencies in the past, not a great credit score, things like that, they're offering rates right now at like below 3%, like they're 2.79, 2.89. That's exactly what everybody was getting from the best lenders last year in October.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like they're getting, 1 point. So it's like anybody getting this year with bruised credit is getting what AAA people were getting last year at this time.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. And so, it's created an absolute insane November, December, and January.
Right. Yeah, it has. Yeah, it has.
I don't think we anticipated COVID happening.
Yeah, so I was going to say, rolling back to like January, February, I get I don't know. Without COVID though, I still feel like we might have been right this year. Like there's our experience working with buyers this year, even during global pandemic, is that like preparedness, like they crave it, like want that, like tell me how to do it kind of conversation. Was not a conversation we were having before. Like more, it was just like, we look at houses and then put offers in, right? Like now it seems to be like, do you have a lawyer? Like I've had more people ask me that you recommend, or do you? I'd like to speak to an alternate lender. Like do you know anyone? Like things like that, like those questions and stuff. I think people understand that the competition does, and I think that would have happened anyways. The early part of the year didn't really develop, right? Like it was slow developing in the early part of the year, and then once people realized what the reality was in March, it went crazy. Yeah.
One of the things that I really noticed, especially with buyers, just hitting on your point about the savvy buyer, that I noticed this year more so than like at the end of last year, is that we had a lot of buyers that were actually asking for comparables before they put in an offer. And that kind of didn't happen for a little while, where they were just kind of like, okay, this seems like about a right price for this neighborhood, or this is what I'm willing to pay for it. Yeah. And people really wanted the nitty gritty information.
And I always think
I think the biggest difference I saw this year versus what we saw in 2016, 2017, when it was really competitive, was that the buyers didn't get swept up in the emotional decision the way they did back in 2016, 2017.
I agree.
Where it's like, where it was, if they missed out on one, they went slightly higher. If they missed out on another one, they went slightly higher. If they missed out on another, and all of a sudden they were pricing themselves at their max for like their fifth or sixth choice. Whereas this year, I think buyers felt okay missing out or losing out because it wasn't what they were comfortable with.
100%.
Absolutely.
I've had people with all kinds of budgets pass on things because things just weren't right, and they're just going to wait for the next one to come along. Sometimes it doesn't feel like that's going to happen, but then it does, and here we are.
Well, or even buyers, who
Adjusting.
Yeah, who adjust, like, okay, like you're saying, this isn't my number one or number two choice. This is maybe my number 3 or 4 choice. And so I'm only going to offer this amount for it.
Happened so much this year.
Instead of like what you were saying before, where they, we're getting tired of losing. So it's like, okay, well, I'll just throw another X amount of dollars on this offer than I did last time. They're really gauging it. They're really kind of discovering, what it's worth to them. And then when we tell them, oh, okay, well, you didn't get this one, it ended up selling for X, that they have almost all of them, I think, have come back to say, oh man, I wouldn't have paid that for that. Yeah. Like they're okay with losing because somebody else paid what they did for it.
It was definitely a different, as far as buyers go, definitely a different animal than the 2016, 2017 buyer. It felt like a good blend. I think because the market has been raging for a while, like that nice lull. Remember 2018? How civilized it was? What a beautiful time. But I think that because the market has been kind of raging for the last little while, anybody that's been approaching buying a home likely started approaching it in 2016. Like started approaching the idea of like, okay, I'm going to get myself set up to purchase. I'm going to like start setting that goal for myself in my next 5-year plan or whatever. So I think they've kind of come, like they're almost like a byproduct of the raging market of 2016.
And
so they wanted
Sorry, go on.
Skills.
I don't disagree, but what I would say that we also noticed as the year progressed, and actually quite quickly as the year progressed, that a lot of the buyers that we started looking with, that in the 3-4 months, let's say, for some of our longer buyers, in the 3 or 4 months that they were looking for houses, we saw them in that time get priced out of the market.
So that's interesting because one of the other trends I've noticed, and this is more, I think people's plans to move up into a bigger home got fast-tracked.
Yeah.
Because interest rates dropped so much, people suddenly looked at it. So I had clients who closed on a place, I think it was January 2019. So like, we're almost at the 2-year mark now. But at the time, rates were in the high 2s, low 3s. So now they're moving up into a property that's an extra, they're carrying an extra $150,000 mortgage, but their payments are the same almost because the rates are half of what they were paying before, right? So that gave them the ability to almost fast track that next move and make it at a 2-year mark as opposed to a 5-year mark.
True. Yeah, that's very true. There's a lot of different factors that were fanning that fire. I think that I'm a firm believer in the psychology of the buyer. Like I like applying my bartending skills to people's sale purchases, but I think that the part of the raging market was people being in their houses all winter, and then just as we're getting a breath of fresh air to like, okay, the weather's getting warmer, like that springtime's coming around, we went into lockdown for an extra couple months. And I think a lot of people were doing I know I did a lot of assessing my life, assessing my choices, really figuring out what's good for me. And like people spent a lot of time inside.
Staring at their walls.
So, I mean, I know I've done a lot to my house this year. You've made decisions about yours. A lot of people like forcing decisions to make them happen. And I think that the same with our buyers. Big part of our conversation this
And
year
our
was,
sellers.
our sellers as well. Like you almost transitioned to sellers on this one, but like the buyers were just like, we live in a one bedroom plus den in Toronto, and we want out. Like
when you're spending an extra 10 hours a day in your home, you start to realize things about it.
Right. Or we have two boys, they're growing, and we need to get out of this house. It's not big enough.
Yeah.
So like,
or if we're not traveling, let's say we're not traveling for the next 2-3 years even. Yeah. Right. So for a family of 4, a 1 week vacation, well, you can speak to this a lot better than I can. Like, let's say I take my family to Disney for a week. Right.
Well, aren't you glad you did that last year now?
I did it at the beginning of January. Oh my God. So
but, like, people aren't spending on things like that. They're not spending on holidays. No. They're not spending on, even things like going to Canada's Wonderland or to a
day
cottage.
Trips.
Like, they're just not spending the money on those things, and people are really reinvesting that into their homes. We saw that with a lot of even renos. Like, it's hard to get a contractor these days that aren't booked 6 months out. It's hard to find lumber. Commodity prices have gone up.
Yeah, we could talk about new builds in that way too, and we come around to it about cost of building changing this year as well. So it's a lot of people really took some time to like reassess their living situations and have either made their houses better or getting them ready for sale for next year. Like, we're talking to a lot of people that are like, no, we're not selling this year, but know that we're getting this house ready and it's like go time next year. Like,
anybody who's realizing, okay, I'm going to be working from home more permanently now, and if the kids are doing their schooling from home, suddenly everybody's tripping over each other's feet.
Oh yes.
Right.
Yes.
So, so I have a question for you of a trend I've noticed, and you can let me know, is this buyer driven or seller driven?
Ooh, I like this game. This could be a flashcard. Should have flashcards.
So for whatever reason, closing periods have gotten really, really short. So I had like 2 people who were scheduled to close in February message me in the last week and say, we're now wanting to close January. And it's like a lot of 30-day or shorter than 30-day closes. Is this being driven by the buyers or the sellers?
Sellers. Buyers in this market right now don't have a lot of say over anything. And closing date, generally speaking, has always been determined by a seller. Mm-hmm. A lot of times, if closing dates have been moved up like that, in my experience anyways, it's because the seller is moving into a new build and they were maybe hedging their bets that things would be delayed a little bit. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden it's actually available earlier.
So the interesting byproduct of this, lawyers are overwhelmed.
Oh yes.
Like I heard back in like the first week of December, they're saying we can't take any more December closes. We're booking into January. And lenders are saying it's going to take us a week to review documents once you submit them because we're so overwhelmed with just the sheer number of transactions. And it makes me wonder if one of the trends for next year, and this kind of transitions into our predictions for the new year, is I would not be surprised if lenders start instituting a minimum time period for closing.
Oh, interesting.
Just to make sure that they can get everything done, proper due diligence. I mean, I've seen...
That's what I was just thinking.
What's that?
Can lenders do that? And would it be in the best interest of lenders to do so, to not be competitive in that way?
Well, it's a matter of, okay, so right now, I have lawyers who will say they need 10 business days.
Yep.
Right? But some lenders will say as long as you get stuff to us 5 business days before closing.
Yeah.
But then the lawyer doesn't have enough time. So if they're being...
The quickest I've ever closed on a property is 2 weeks. So 10 business days. And it was on a condo townhouse. And we got status certificate, title search, and close done in 10 business days.
But I think it depends on what's happening. So if you have lenders who have a ton of transactions, and the other thing is, a lot of these people are reduced workforce right now.
Absolutely, they are.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have everybody all in the office readily available to each other, and I think that's having a ripple effect.
I agree, Jamie, but here's the thing: is that
She said it.
I did say it. There you go. Here's the thing. Yes, I completely agree. And most lawyers' offices, as well as lenders, are not working at full capacity. I will say, though, that lawyers' fees have gone up this year.
Yep.
That getting answers from lenders has started to take a little bit longer this year. And this is true of all businesses. This is not just in real estate. This is across the board. And I wonder at what point the level of service and the cost of service becomes a detriment to the client. You know, so if lenders start saying like, well, no, we need a minimum 3 weeks to close, but both parties want it to close in 2 weeks, you know,
it's a matter of everybody can get their ducks in a row, right? Like, I mean, and I think what this comes down to is an education piece.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of, like, right now in the grand scheme of things, in the transactions, the way things tend to work is you'll have a conversation with your buyer or your seller. Well, I guess let's say in this case buyer, and you'll recommend a lawyer to them. I find sometimes they don't reach out right away.
Yeah, I agree.
And kind of say, okay, hey, put a pin in this date. We're going to be there.
We do.
And then I'll talk to them and say, okay, which lawyer are you using?
Yeah.
And they'll tell me. And then I think they assume that we all just kind of reach out. They don't have to worry about anything until the lawyer calls them. And so I think there's a communication piece that can happen that can be streamlined where we're like, okay, whether they get a call from the buyer, me, and you, so that it's, yes, nobody dropped the ball. We know that we don't have to worry about them all of a sudden going, what do you mean this is closing in a week once they get the instructions from the lender? Right? So I think that and it hasn't always been done that way.
Well, so here's a fun story.
Yeah, we 100% had that happen this year. And well, let's just say there was some miscommunication along the line, and it was 3 days before closing, and our client called the lawyer to book their appointment. And the lawyer said, oh, well, when's your closing? She told her. And they said, well, we don't have a file open for you. So the title search hadn't been done yet. The lender had not called the lawyer. The lawyer had not called the lender. And then we ended up having to revise the offer to reflect a new title search date. And thankfully, we have a very good relationship with that lawyer. And so I was able to call to say, dear God, help us. And they did it. They did it all, and it closed on time, and it was not a problem. No rush fees or anything like that. It was done. But there was a ball was dropped somewhere along the line. Yeah,
I've seen similar things where an office sent the instructions to the wrong, I find out a couple of days beforehand, the administrative assistant sent everything to this lawyer instead of this lawyer.
Yep.
Oh, we've had an issue with some clerks this year as well. Three times actually. Same clerk. So there's not very many recommendations going that way, just to say we always refining. But yeah, so we ran into the issue of habits before, habits after. We moved over to Remax last year, and we were in the habit before of handing our information in to the lawyer ahead of time. And to no fault of Remax at all. It was just staff changes, things like that. Somewhere along the line, that habit of them sending the paperwork in right away got kind of missed in translation, and we had some kind of timelines that were a little bit more crunched. That was earlier on. It was like last year. But then we fell back into the habit. Our habit is that we do send to lender, or do send to, like you may have to prompt me and be like, I need that other document, but we do get it to them. We try to be the point person for that because it just makes smoother transitions, like you're talking about, because tight closes do come along more often, right?
Right.
Well, I find it's one of two ways. It's either super, super tight
or long,
or like 4 months out.
Yeah.
Like
we have a couple of those.
There's not a lot of that, 60-day close anymore.
The 60-day close doesn't exist right now.
No. It's either less than 30 or like 4 months plus.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know if that's going to be a continuing trend, or like, what do you think? Do you think that's, because it was pretty unique to this year?
I agree.
60 days was pretty standard there for a while.
Yeah, 60 to 90 days was pretty standard. I think that 60 to 90 days, though, was at a time when people were moving for a particular reason, whether like for school or work or whatever, and there were set timelines for that move, either from the buyer or from the seller, usually from the seller. But I don't think that people have those fixed timelines as much right now as they did in the past. They have a lot more flexibility in terms of work schedule, school schedules, that sort of thing. Whether or not that continues is anybody's guess. I like a quick close. I really like a quick close because we know that there's nothing that's going to fall through the cracks. Whereas over 4 months, there's a lot more room for miscommunication, for things to be forgotten. That last walkthrough, something could happen to the house. You never know. There's just so much more time for incidents to happen.
Okay.
The only downside to quick closes is it does put more onus on the buyer. So oftentimes I'll collect as much documents up front as I can, but then the lender will have to review those documents and sometimes ask for cooperating documents, right? And so for example, if I need to see the bank statements that show where the down payment's coming from, and the people have a tendency to transfer money back and forth between two different accounts. Okay, well now I need the bank statements for that other account as well that you've been transferring money back and forth just to show the paper trail. And so that really puts the onus on the clients to get stuff back quickly and accurately and complete.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think that a lot of that kind of issue is stopped in its tracks ahead of time with good conversation. And I think that's one thing that I could say that is glaringly lacking in the real estate business right now. And I'm going to be bold and say that, but there's a very large gap in realtors stepping up, and there are some great realtors. Don't get me wrong. You're out there and you know who you are. You're right now. You're saying, I have good conversations. You do. You're fine. But if you're thinking that not all realtors do, you're wrong, because we've run into it multiple times over the last year. And it's, again, another trend that's happening where good conversation ahead of time with your clients and having an opinion and being the professional in the room stops a lot of that issue from happening, like timelines not being met, things like that. Because if you're the professional in the room, you're sending the paperwork, you're making sure that communication is happening. Like, what else is your job? Like, you're facilitating this transaction to happen for lawyers. You're facilitating paperwork, like part of our job, facilitating paperwork so the lenders and the lawyers can understand it and smooth transition that bad boy across the finish line. That's your job. Like,
it's taking 2 minutes to review it's taking 2 minutes to review it and say, hey, what about this? Like, as opposed to just, a lot of times people just say, okay, we got the documents forwarded through, and not review them and say,
100%.
This could come up.
It takes very little time.
And we all make mistakes.
We all make mistakes. Yeah. It happens, but there are consistently horrible situations that happen. Like, we've had, for instance, even not knowing, like, we've run into it that you have to have
I was just going to ask about that.
Yeah, in order to get your mortgage, in order to get everything passed by your insurance, if there is a well on the property, you have to have a recent water sample pass.
You have to have a certificate showing the water's potable.
Yes, that's right. So,
however, in this current market and in this current climate, that we have seen multiple times that the seller has not done a water test prior to list, which is always a good idea. Although a buyer should always do their own water test as well.
No.
But people buying these properties with septic and well without a water potability test or a septic inspection. No condition thereof. No condition.
Wow.
There is a giant tank buried in the ground
and
a well somewhere on the property. One is filled with human matter.
Oh, I don't like the way you put that.
Gross. I watch a lot of crime shows.
At least she didn't say humans.
Yeah. And you're not okay then. Like you're not even going to ask the question. So like be the professional in the room, know how to pull it across the finish line. We've had multiple offers this year get purchased on condition.
Yep.
And sometimes you got to move fast. You got to have that home inspector ready. You got to have your financial people lined up to be like, hey, poking the bear. Just can I do 3 days? You've been the recipient of that conversation, Jamie.
I have been.
But I mean, if you need 5 days, you need 5 days. It is what it is. But I like trying to do my best for the client, but still cover them for any incident.
Well, and even on the list side of things as well, that when we go to list a property, for example, if it's a condo, we do things like request the status certificate ahead of time.
Yeah, everything's selling quickly.
Lawyers
want it to be a good 30 days.
We would do a water potability test because right now things are really delayed as well. And
inspections, like getting appraisals done.
Yeah,
just get it done.
And like have all those things done, and dated as well. And to all the buyers, I always recommend that you do your own due diligence. Always.
100%.
But it makes people feel more confident, especially if it's a transferable warranty on an inspection. Some inspectors out there do that. That the inspection can be purchased and then the warranty then transfers over from the seller to the buyer. Can happen. Or just get the major mechanicals done in a pre-inspection. It's going to cost you $400 or $500, but it's worth it every day.
Every day.
So I have a question for you.
Great.
What is the one phrase you would love to see disappear from our industry in 2021?
Fully offers.
Bidding war.
Fully offers. Sorry.
Bidding war. We have strong opinions on this. It is not a bidding war. Dear God, please, if I never hear that again, I'll be happy.
Yeah, it's not like they all have paddles and they're sitting there raising them saying, or you have somebody in the back going, yep.
It's so adversarial, and that's not what we're trying to do. Like, for a buyer, it gives you the time to be able to get into a property potentially multiple times if you need to. It gives you the opportunity to do a pre-inspection on a property. It gives you the chance to see it in the daytime and the nighttime. For a seller, it gives you an opportunity, especially right now in a time of COVID when showings have restrictions on times. There's only so many people you can get into a house. We can't have open houses. Well, we probably shouldn't have open houses right now. We can in some areas. I'm sorry.
Something should.
No. But for the buyer, it allows for more people to see the property. It's mutually beneficial.
It's all professional people try to create mutually beneficial situations. Mm-hmm. But there's no such thing as a bidding war. It is a headline term. To incite fear or aggression in people.
Yeah.
Here's something that we heard from a very well-respected longtime realtor in the area, Uta Kaiser, this week. And this is true for both buyers and sellers in any given situation, is that a realtor should not cost you money. A realtor should make you money. And it's very true. It's very true for both buyers and sellers, because if you're a buyer going into a property and if it's in a multiple offer situation, then we're going to coach you in terms of what's going to potentially not only get you the property, but get you the property at a price that's protecting your investment and protecting not just your financial investment, your physical investment, your emotional investment, everything. It's not just about the house. It's about where you're going to live.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything that you said there.
What terms do you want to see gone?
The one term I would love to see eliminated from the lexicon of our industry next year is I've never had to do that before.
Okay.
Right? So oftentimes, like, I'll reach out and say, can I get a copy of this document? Oh, I've never had to do that before.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Right?
Yeah, we're in a new reality.
Yeah.
And it's, I've never, I've had realtors, obviously, not the two of you, because if I reach out and say, can you get me this document? It's like in my inbox 30 seconds later, which I love. But I've had realtors who are like, well, I've never had to send that to anyone before. Well, the lenders aren't going to ask for it, and I'm not going to ask for it if it's not necessary. So can you just send it? Like,
yeah. Here's one for you then, Jamie. What changes have happened this year that you hope stay in place moving forward, long term?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Well, I can tell you semi-long term.
Sure.
I anticipate rates are going to continue to stay very low for all of next year.
Oh.
Fixed rates will probably start to climb a little bit near the end of the year, but for the most part, we're in a low rate situation for the next 12 months.
Perfect. As somebody,
so that's a short term thing.
Yeah. Rebecca's looking if you know anyone.
I will say that, and I don't know if this is strictly from a me standpoint, but I found that people being comfortable with not necessarily doing the belly-to-belly meetings all the time meant that we were a lot more accessible and a lot more productive for our clients.
Yeah.
We were spending less time in the cars and more time actually doing the work and working with them. And so being able to do video conferencing or phone calls or things like that, I think allowed us to get a lot of stuff done sooner.
And less time of let's just take a look showings.
Yeah, so I think there's that. To me, I hope that's a permanent change to the industry where people realize, hey, I'm working with a trusted professional. I can have phone calls with them at any time, but trying to organize a meetup is a lot tougher around 3 people's schedule, especially if the buyers have kids or whatever and all of that stuff. But it's a lot easier to do a phone call once the kids are put down for bed or whatever.
Yes.
And so I think that from that standpoint, it really made us more responsive, more readily available, and able to get more stuff done in a shorter time.
I agree. What about you, Sandy?
I personally love open houses, and I'm sad. I really look forward to. I keep, me. I keep trying to refine the open house and figure it out because I love an open house. A sleigh. I love it. But the
on that note, I have an idea for you.
Oh, okay. Well, we can jam about that.
Somebody actually asked if you could do a Facebook Live open house.
We have come up with different ways to do that. We're definitely talking about it for next year. So we're working on different ways that we can service our sellers and buyers in that way. So I really like that. One thing I hope that stays into next year. It was hard. It's hard because we were already very digital. Like we already had decided that all of our business was digital. We barely touch paper, which some people like Uda, for instance, she's lovely. Like she loves paper, but we barely touch it. Everything is saved in our encrypted stuff. But I would say that one thing I hope stays is that that we're not doing a lot of tire kicking. Like I love showing houses. I love doing open houses. I love going and getting tangible with these properties. but at the same time, let's not be flim-flammy getting into people's houses. Like, if you're serious about buying or selling, we should seriously look at it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I'm talking about like, no, I've decided I'm buying a home. I would like to look at this one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not talking about like, no, this one's absolutely perfect for me. I need to see it right now. I'm probably going to put in an offer, like that degree.
Yep.
And like before, it was just like, we thought about it. We were maybe talking to our mortgage broker. We were maybe talking just to the counter lady at the bank. And then like you just go to kind of go, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that we're not doing a whole lot of tire kicking. The people that we are, like I'm showing houses in Dundas on Thursday. These are serious people, seriously want to look. And I know that. And I'll drive to Dundas to show them places. So no problem.
So
And
I think this year has gone a long way in helping that, right? Because
so far,
people only went to physically see places that they knew by looking at the virtual tours or whatever they were really interested in. And because the market still went up so much, like we still saw year-over-year increases in terms of transactions and everything like that. So because of that, that speaks that people are comfortable buying in this way.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
And I think too,
Right.
for people, it helps have that conversation about, okay, is this really what you're looking for? You know, like, what is it about this house and not this house?
Mm-hmm.
And having that conversation ahead of time instead of having that conversation in the house.
Yeah.
You know, and people were more open and more honest.
Process of elimination was much more cut the fat. Like, cut it out.
Like it in this industry, there is an expression, buyers are liars. And that it's to mean that they don't often, I shouldn't say often, they sometimes don't give you the full story about what their situation is, what their motivation is, what it is that they're really looking for. And it's something you kind of tease out over time, looking at properties with them. Sometimes even because Sandy and I work with the same clients, obviously, that if I show a property one day and then she shows the same couple a property 2 days later, we get two different informations. We get two different stories about what's going on.
I like to call it buyers are guarded.
Well, fine.
But no, but I'm with you on that. Like,
but
it's
Try asking them about their finances.
they never tell you exactly. I like it's. I always say like, there's this number that they say. There's this number that they say that you can be approved for, and then there's your budget.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yes.
Where are we landing? So give me your budget and give me what you're looking for. Okay, so just so you know, you're not going to get your budget. We may have to do this a little bit, or no, you're great, you're good. You know, we've had successes on both ends of the spectrum. So that is something that I'm pretty grateful for. Is that it seems to be a lot quicker for the cutting of the fat. On as far as like talking to buyers, as far as a seller's side, what I like about this year is that our sellers have been serious this year.
Yeah.
Nobody's testing the market.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's just like, I'm just going to dabble in the market and see what's up. Like sellers are, like you were saying before about the short timelines, sellers have purchased.
Mm-hmm.
So that they need to get rolling, you know, like, and there's no like, let's try it out. And if the market's good, then we get what we want, then we're good, you know, like.
And I find that sellers are much more diligent.
Yes.
It's like about kind of their strategy. They're much more open about giving particular times for showings. Instead of, you know, saying like, well, you know, no showings after 6 o'clock, you know, or, you know, I don't want any showings this weekend, you know. It's like, okay, so we're going to allow showings for all of these times. These are the times that people are going to come in. They're much more receptive when we say things like turn on all the lights, you know, leave cupboard doors open and things like that. And I personally love, and I know that we've talked about this before, is that most showings don't allow children under the age of 12.
Oh, that can keep going.
You know, and that helps everybody.
Like,
It really,
I have children,
many children.
many of them, all of the children. I no way. Not bringing them through houses. Even the most well-behaved kids, you're distracted. You're not really looking at the house, like things like that. I hope that sticks around as well.
So, I have a question about pricing in the new year.
Oh boy.
One of the frustrations I think we've both heard throughout the year is, I'm going to choose my term carefully here,
Please do.
targeted pricing, where a home will get listed specifically to attract a plethora of people, even though they know fully well it should be valued maybe a little bit more than that.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack there. So there's never one firm price of a house. There's a range. There's a range. Their house is going to land between here and here. Which strategy would you like? Do you have a house that you purchased? Are you on a condition on that? Do you want a long close? Like what, or like all the moving variables that are happening with the seller's situation? Like what's the range?
Sure, but I'm talking about listing something at say 400,000 when the comparables are at 490.
So that's another animal. But then we would say like, okay, so you want to hold off offers, then I would list it low end and like depending on the house, depending on the situation, and then tuck it under here. Then so that situation that you're talking about, undervaluing homes, something that is outside of the value, I personally think it's unprofessional.
Agreed. However, I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate here.
Great. Get out of my house.
Yeah, Sandy's the only one allowed to be the devil.
And this is something that I tell both buyers and sellers, is that a house is worth exactly as much as somebody is willing to pay for it on a given day.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And that's it.
Right?
That's it.
So, and pricing a house is very subjective.
Mm-hmm.
You could have 15 realtors come through the same house and you will get 15 different numbers.
Yeah.
Sure, but all those realtors are pulling comparables and should be showing their clients their comparables.
Should be.
But here's the thing, though, too, that in this market, that the price that somebody's listed it at may be comparable to what 3 of the 4 houses have sold for, maybe on the lower end of that.
Yeah.
And then maybe there's one house that sold for that 490 per your example, right?
Right.
So, let's say the other one sold around like 425, 430, that sort of thing. And so, pricing it at the low end or under value for what the other general comparable properties are, it is a strategy. I mean, I think to price it professionally, as Sandy was saying, and to price it around what the current market value ought to be is the only way to do it in a fair way. But what the market value ought to be versus what the market value ends up being in a potential multiple offer situation are two very, very different things.
Sure.
I have room for people valuing homes that require love. Yeah. That require
if they're dated or whatever and they're not going to be on the high end of the spectrum.
Okay, well, you know what? This house typically it should be about this. Let's dip it down all the way to this because to be fair, we work with a lot of contractors and we work with a lot of builders. There's a lot of them that won't even look at a house unless they think that they can make more than their average profit. So they won't even come and look at it. Your professional, ones that they won't even come look at it. So if you have a house that's like that, I mean, and you don't want to do any work to it or can't afford to do work to it,
which is totally fine.
It's totally fine. You can list your house exactly. That's another thing. We'll come back to that, and we're going to hit new builds too. Okay. But you can list your house as it is, but that is a strategy as well if depending on if your house needs major renovation. It's a good idea. You won't get those butts through the door. You won't get those people through. What you're doing is when you dip it down that low, you're broadening the brushstroke of people that will come through. Then the problem I have with it, as far as like the selling agent not pricing it properly, is that the onus is now on me to have the conversation with my buyer when I send it to them and say, hey, I know I haven't gone in to see this house yet, but just so you know, this house at this size on this street or this neighborhood is actually this. Just so you know.
I will also say
it gets disheartening for them.
It is. Yeah.
The strategy also backfires.
It backfires. People won't go see it too.
People won't go see it, or they'll go see it and say, well, this is ridiculously underpriced. Yeah. This is clearly going to go for...
And then they won't bring an offer.
I've won at least 2 properties because not this year, but in the last market, where properties were listed way undervalued. Mm-hmm. Like, significantly undervalued, and nobody else brought an offer. Mm-hmm. So, okay, here you go at asking.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So new builds. I heard an interesting stat that makes me think that this
comes Rebecca.
Crazy market's going to continue into much of next year.
Yep.
And some of it focuses around new builds.
Right.
So the stat I heard is right now there are 800,000 immigrants waiting to get into the GTA area once COVID ends. Oof. So if you think about 800,000 people who need to find places to live, mm-hmm. that says to me that the competitive market's going to continue for a while. And we all know that new builds can add to that because people can buy in advance while it waits to get built. So I'm curious as to what's going to happen in the new build market versus the existing build market.
Well, the new build they can buy into without even being here.
Yes and no.
Yes and no?
Yeah, there's still foreign investor things that...
Yeah. Okay. So to use Sandy's expression, a lot to unpack there.
There's a lot to unpack.
Yes.
Okay. So one of the things that we've obviously all been noticing in this kind of golden horseshoe area is a lot of influx from the GTA, which we've been experiencing for years. Totally fine. But now we're seeing it at a very rapid rate. And we're seeing what they're looking for is completely different than what they were before. Before they were commuters. They were looking for little bedroom communities that were close to the 401. They could hop on, go to work, whatever.
South End Guelph.
South End Guelph.
West End Guelph.
Well, they should be looking
it used to be West End when I was a kid. Old.
But now we're seeing that change. They're not necessarily looking for Guelph-Asaga. They're looking for, Center Wellington. They're looking for somewhere that feels more open, feels more rural, feels more spacious, for so many reasons, because maybe they only have to go into the office once a week now. Maybe they don't want their kids to maybe they don't want their kids to be in classrooms with 30 other kids anymore, or maybe they're homeschooling their kids, and so it doesn't matter.
Maybe a pandemic scared them out of wanting to be in a large population area.
Absolutely. And so I heard a really disturbing interview with a GTA realtor on CBC Radio a while ago, and I actually called Sandy, and I was raging. And there was this GTA agent saying, people are moving out of the GTA now and, discovering places like Guelph and KW and even all the way out to Woodstock. And this is going to completely solve our housing shortage issue. I'm sorry.
Nothing ever happened before he was born or any time.
Yeah, I know.
Like it hasn't been going on for like 30 years.
I know. So it's going to completely solve the housing shortage issue because, first of all, GTA is the only place that has a housing shortage issue. That there wouldn't be anybody else moving into the GTA for any reason. That
so short-sighted.
Such
a short-sighted statement.
I yelled at my radio in my car. I was that crazy.
And then at me.
I did.
Yeah.
So having those people in waiting with immigration, it sounds like a lot because it's going to happen quickly once it's able to.
Mm.
However, that's not an unusual number in terms of immigration annually. It just seems like a lot because it's going to happen quickly. It's going to be a large influx.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of housing, here's some of the great things, is that a lot of the people who are coming into the GTA immigration-wise are people who have family already established here, who are not necessarily going to be looking for new homes for themselves. They will be moving in with family in the GTA and surrounding area. A lot of these people are coming with skills, education, money already in hand to purchase housing. Yes, some of these people are going to be looking for services, for sure. That's what Canada's founded on. Get on my soapbox here for a second. But we're also seeing a lot of people moving out of the GTA. So I think it's really going to balance itself out. Like right now, when you're going to realtor.ca, even in new construction, you're going to see a ton of condos on assignment or that have just closed and are up for sale. Yeah. A lot of these things that were purchased on spec 2-3 years ago that people are now wanting to sell because they don't want to be in the Toronto market. Yeah. Those people are going to gobble that stuff up like butter.
Well, it's funny because I talked to one person about this and they said, well, they're not going to come and buy right away. They're going to rent.
No.
And I'm like, okay, but somebody has to buy the properties for them to rent from.
Yeah, and honestly, I would say the vast majority, that's not the situation. Mm-hmm. They do not come into a rental situation.
Yeah.
So
it's going to be interesting. I think I don't know. So what? Okay, you were talking about supplies being tougher to come by, and costing more, goods costing more with the new build.
Yeah. So I wanted to touch on that too. So we've seen the cost of building go up exponentially. Rebecca will talk about it. That's my piece.
So not only have actual commodity prices increased for things like lumber, concrete, infill, gravel, like actual base construction materials, all of that cost has gone up exponentially, right down to finishes like granite, marble, porcelain, even some metals like brass price has gone up. That sort of, I know. So there's a lot of Sandy's face.
That's my don't fall asleep with Dottie alarm.
But also the cost for trades has also increased. And the cost of labor and construction itself has increased. And that has to have a knock-on effect into the actual purchase price. So whether or not you're doing a renovation, new construction, purchasing on spec from a builder, those prices are going up. That cost has to be passed on to the consumer.
Yeah.
So doesn't that make it tougher for new build projects? Because traditionally, you'd be looking at a condo that might not finish for 2 years, and you put and you agree on the price 2 years before it's ever finished.
Yep.
And now all of a sudden, goods and services of making that condo are going up.
Yes.
Does that make it a lot tougher for the builders to accurately anticipate the cost of what the units will be?
So that cost gets
So, yes.
So that cost gets rolled over like it always has.
Yeah.
But with the exception of that, it's a way different price.
Yeah, and it's tough too for builders who had larger projects and multi-phase projects. It's going to be much more difficult for them than it is for a builder who just has like maybe 1 or 2 phases of condos or townhouses rather. You know, it's going to be much more difficult for larger multi-annual, multi-phase projects.
Right. And from a building, like from a mortgage standpoint, typically builders get their influx of cash in 3 different stages. Right? So it's, you know, foundation goes in, walls and windows are up, and then roof goes on. And then you get a third. So you have to carry those costs until you reach that, you know, milestone. And if, for whatever reason, you have to shut down your project, you know, COVID flares up, lack of workers available, things like that, you're carrying those costs for longer. All of a sudden, your cost in that building, plus the materials, plus all of that, starts really adding up.
Absolutely. Yep. And even for people who are doing renovations to their homes or building a custom home, that people are seeing those costs become prohibitive.
Yeah.
So what does this mean for buyers who are looking to get new builds?
New build isn't cheaper than resale, just so everyone knows. That's that's an inside job. But yeah, no, what it means is that it's just as pricey.
So buyers looking to purchase new construction, and as you guys both know, and those of you joining us online may or may not know, I buy and sell a lot of new construction. And a lot of people have this impression that it is going to be inexpensive, an easy way to make money, buy it on spec, sell it as soon as you get the keys 2 years later. That sort of a thing is going to be not as safe of an investment as it once was.
So that's sometimes referred to as paper flipping or, right? Like, so as some of the people watching may not know, you don't actually have to have your mortgage ready to fund until a condo corp forms. So you could actually take possession and be in your condo for 5, 6, 7 months before you actually need your mortgage.
Yes.
And you actually can't sell it privately during that time because technically you don't own it yet.
You can't rent it out either.
You can't rent it out.
You can't rent it out. And
no.
Sell it.
No.
So
and a lot of builders
buy on the higher floors.
The view's nice.
Well, no. But that also because it closes from the bottom up. When a larger building gets built, ground floor, you're literally getting in on the ground floor.
Yeah.
So ground floor closes first and it works its way up. So if you buy on the higher levels, they may have already formed the condo court by the time you move in.
Yeah.
Or paying less rent, you're rolling it into your investment. People prefer higher floors.
So in terms of buyers looking for new construction, though, is that new construction is still a really great option for some people. For people who are very particular in what they are looking for. Yeah. For people who, who maybe don't want to start taking on a mortgage for a year or two, where they're going to be in a better financial position at that time. Maybe they have the $40,000 deposit, they're good to go, they've got that, but they don't want to take on the actual mortgage until a little bit later. Like if they're a younger couple, totally understand that. That's a great option. I think too that buying new construction can be difficult for some people who don't have the vision. That I would say 90% of the buyers that I work with who purchase new construction without kind of having done it before, when they get into the space, it's always smaller than they think it was.
Yeah.
Always.
I think the other thing that people don't realize is that buying a new build carries a lot more risk than buying an existing where you're going to close in the next 45 days.
Yeah.
Because you have the time between your offer and the close that you could
lose
your job.
Well,
you could
buy a yacht.
And here's the thing is that I would say that the majority of builders now do not offer what's called an assignment. So it used to be fairly common for builders to offer the opportunity for assignment on new construction, which means that if, God forbid, something were to happen within the 2 years between you purchasing and closing, and you needed to sell that property on paper, that you would pay an assignment fee to the builder in order to sell your contract, more or less.
Right.
But most builders don't allow for that anymore, and if they do, it's at a very high cost, normally between $10,000 and $15,000.
Well, the other thing that we saw that we haven't seen in the last 2 years, but we had mortgage rule changes.
Yeah.
So if you buy something and then all of a sudden the benchmark rate came in and now you don't qualify against the benchmark rate.
Yeah.
Right. So
there's so many things, there's like just so many moving variables. Anything can happen in that time.
Can we also just talk in terms of new construction? Oftentimes when people think new construction, they think subdivision, townhouses, condo apartments, like high-rise apartments and things like that. But as we're talking new construction, let's talk custom building or building your own home. For the love of God, do your research first.
Do your research first.
So HGTV has ruined this for people.
Ruined it. It's
because everybody gets this dream of being able to either buy and flip something or find this property and then build over time. And
you know what? I
major reno.
I fully support a buy, and maybe not necessarily a flip, but like a major reno, or buy it and change it to make it your own, that kind of thing. There's not a lot of room in the market for a flip anymore. There is in certain price brackets, but we can get into that another time. But buying a piece of land to build your dream house on, super romantic idea, really dreamy, really lovely, very impractical, extraordinarily costly, and as you can speak to it, Jamie, difficult to find.
So buying land and building probably requires more money in your bank account than any other real estate trade out there.
Yes.
We can all agree on that.
Yeah. First off, to get mortgage on land alone is not easy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Second, then you have to, as we talked about, fund it in stages as you do the building project. So it's not for somebody who is looking to just get into the market. You have to have a significant amount of money in your bank account to float costs to begin with.
It's not even just about the amount of money. Like, you have to have the money in the bank, but you also have to have a really good understanding of what funds of what you're spending, like, and what you're spending it on.
And I swear to God, if I have another first-time home buyer say they want to build their own house, I might just
she'll just set fire to this,
kick them through the office door.
Yeah. It's not a reality. It's not
realistic.
However, I will say there is one exception to that. And it could be a trend that we start to see become more prevalent.
Tiny homes.
Maybe, the tiny home.
The tiny homes are going to happen outside of, until Ontario becomes less GTA centric. Tiny homes are not the solution, unfortunately. They are the solution in the outer reaches that are uncommutable.
And here's another thing that HGTV has killed repeatedly, stabbing me in the heart with a scorching poker. They
good thing you invited her.
I'm ragey today. I'm sorry.
So ragey.
That they have all positioned tiny homes to be basically on wheels, mobile tiny homes. Yeah. And most regions, the city of Guelph, Guelph-Aramasa, region of Waterloo, Puss Lynch area, all the way up to like North Dumfries and Simcoe, you cannot have an impermanent house on a purchased piece of land.
Nope.
You do not allow it. They don't
do
allow
not
it.
allow it.
It needs to be a structure with proper plumbing and
Which means
electrical
you can't
foundation.
get funding.
Well, it's not just foundation. They'll kick you off your land.
They'll kick you off
can't.
your land.
Or the one exception to that is that you can do like yurts and stuff like that.
You can, but not in the city unless it has proper.
Not in the city, no.
And like for those of you out there who don't know,
But you'll never get a mortgage for a yurt.
No.
Rebecca basically lives in a wood yurt.
It's kind of.
Yeah.
I live in a tiny home. I love tiny homes. I would live in a tiny home for the rest of my life if I could. Sadly, my tiny home is sinking into the earth. So
Going back,
it's becoming tinier.
Becoming an orc.
It is becoming tinier. It is.
It's gonna come out from under the oak tree.
That's right. Lord of the Rings. But you know what? Tiny homes are an awesome alternative. I think that they could be a really great way to have affordable housing.
Are we talking about tiny homes on tiny lots?
Well, this is what I was just going to get into.
It has to be tiny lots, because otherwise it's not.
Well, and that would require
or multi-unit lots.
No.
Yeah, well, that's complicated.
That'd
be like a condo.
That would be like
a co-op.
City of Guelph doesn't really allow for co-ops. Anyways, it becomes much more complicated because right now in the city of Guelph, if you were to purchase a building lot and build a brand new single family home, it has to have a minimum 30-foot frontage. So my lot wouldn't even qualify as a building lot technically. Just got to do a reno when it comes up for sale soon. But so the city of Guelph that I'm using as an example would have to change its building bylaws to accommodate for that, because right now it doesn't. And this is actually something that Mike Schreiner, our Green MPP, and I have talked about at length, is for allowing for things like tiny homes in some of the laneways in Guelph that are no longer used as laneways, or to use it kind of in situations where in some places in Guelph, they have like older barns or sheds and things like that in the backyard between two homes.
Yeah. So I want to. We can get into this later, but I don't want people to start equating tiny home as affordable home, because we're too close to the GTA, and Guelph is still too much of a desirable city to live in for anything to stay affordable, and don't get me wrong, I lived in Gary Tigham housing for like 11 years. I know what's up.
Also, I did the calculations, and an affordable home in Guelph right now would need to be under $418,000
for the average income. But tiny homes is not a solution in Guelph for affordable. If you build it in a laneway, someone will pay $600,000 to live in it.
Yep, if it's cute enough.
If it's cute. So let's not equate that to affordable housing.
No, at some point there's going to be a builder who's going to decide to do a trendy tiny home community.
If anybody out there wants to do that, I will gladly advocate for you and sell them, no problem.
But then you're selling $600,000 500 square foot homes.
Well, I'm going to sell mine.
But then that jacks up the prices of other houses. I mean, we're going on that. You know what I mean? Like, it's not necessarily a solution. What has to happen is that Ontario needs to be less GTA centric, and that's happening. It's actually happening with COVID.
It is happening, but
it is happening right now. Yeah, for sure.
But I don't think that is. I think it's going to be short lived.
I don't think so. I disagree. I think it's going to be. I think the noose is tight, and it's going to be tight for another 6 months minimum. And I think that we're going to see a definite economic shift from. Sorry, the horse clatter that you're hearing is my dog shifting. Jesus. Anyway, let's rally on tiny homes. Let's come back to that and do a whole live video on tiny homes and affordable homes and what that.
What's the difference? Yeah,
that's my jam.
It's her jam. Yeah, it's her jam.
Okay, so then let's. Because I'm mindful of time, why don't we sit here and each pick 2 things we predict are going to happen
in
2021?
Okay.
You go first.
Who, me?
Yeah.
You brought it up, sir.
All right. Well, I mean, the first one was easy. I already mentioned it. Rates will stay low. Bank of Canada might do a rate increase at some point next year, but I don't think it's going to happen early on in the year. The second piece of that is the market is, you can forget about that, how traditionally buying in the winter months, you got better value because there was less competition out there. That's not going to happen this year. This year, people are going to, the competition from the tail end of the year is going to continue through the early part of next year. It's going to be crazy.
The seasonal market is gone.
I don't think that's ever going to come back.
I don't think it's going to come back. It's gone.
No, so it's one of those things where if you're thinking you're going to be buying, you should be having the conversation. If you think you're going to buy in April, your conversation should have happened by now.
Yeah. Yep. 100%. What are your predictions?
My predictions. My number one prediction is that I think that we are going to start to see a good amount of former income properties and or student housing being put up at market and being converted back into single family homes.
Interesting.
Yeah. That's
that will really help the first time buyer market.
It's going to be a surge next year.
Yeah. My second prediction is that houses with pools are going to go up huge in value. Traditionally, for the last at least 10, 15 years, houses with pools have been what we would consider value neutral. It doesn't necessarily add value to a property, but it didn't necessarily take away from a property. But I think in the next year, people are going to really want homes with pools.
People are paying big money for pools
because pool companies to get installed right now, you're booking 2 years out minimum.
Well, and yards too, right? Like people will pay extra for a good sized yard.
Yeah.
Because they don't look at, oh, this is a lot to maintain. Now they're going to look at, this is a place we're going to hang out because we can't really travel.
So that was going to be one of my predictions. Was that?
Oh, sorry.
No, that's fine. I wasn't going to say pools.
Okay.
I was actually going to say houses with property. We've been in competition in rural farms, hobby farms, this year, and I've been talking to some people that sell rural quite often, especially up in Center Wellington, and they have seen that it's been pretty unprecedented about the hobby farms selling in multiple offers, holding off offers in competition. So I think that I'm going to turn this one around on you. I think that next year we're going to see a lot of hobby farms go up for sale, for one, because I think people didn't realize how much their hobby farm could get.
Yeah.
And then two, because people that coming from the GTA, they're like, I love goats, don't realize how much it costs and how much it takes to llamas.
I'm going to start teaching goat yoga.
I grew up with goats, man.
I like it.
They're adorable. I would have one in a heartbeat. But they smell like a barn.
It's a barnyard animal.
So we're looking for an alpaca farm right now for our clients and in Center Wellington, and it's competition at the yin yang, it's crazy. So my prediction is that people that have hobby farms are going to realize how much their hobby farms are worth and are going to want out because it's lucrative now. And then two, I think by the end of the year or early in the next year, we're going to start seeing those farms come back up because people didn't realize. They thought it was really great. Home and Garden TV, we got out of the GTA. We bought that farm with the goats. We can do that now. So
it's a Green Acres year.
It's a Green Acres year. It's a Green Acres year. And then I think late next year, early the next year, we're going to see people selling off their hobby farms because they had no clue what was entails on that.
You're going to see a lot of exploded septic tanks.
I think
living in from the city into the country that just have no idea.
I think in 2021, we are going to see a lot of lawsuits against realtors.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them. I think that's what's going to happen. And I'm going to be brassy and say that, but I have a really good hard and fast feeling from the stuff that I didn't say it. We've been here for a long time. I didn't say it. From the stuff that I've seen go down this year, I think there are going to be a lot of people on the hook for a lot of liability.
And the ripple effect of that is that we're going to see a lot more regulations come into play in the industry.
Oh, yes. That was going to be the next part, was that there will be more rules, more regulations, more boundaries for a profession that we take very seriously.
More accountability.
And please let there be more accountability. It is sloppy out there at best sometimes.
Yeah.
So I like, that's not necessarily a market prediction. I definitely think that
it'll affect the market, though.
I think it'll affect the market in that I think it'll take a while for people to get savvy to it, though. I think we were looking at the end of the year where people start leaning away from discount realty and like things like that.
Well, it'll affect the market in the sense that people are going to be more cautious.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? So there's the value that you offer in terms of the education piece and that
or any other really great
becomes more valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of them.
But they are going to be a lot more cautious about, because you see the stories, or as stories hit, it means we have to work harder to rebuild trust for something other people did.
Oh my God, yes, so much. But I think that, like, I really don't think that we're going to see a slow in the market. There's a lot of people that are saying like there's going to be a dip in house sales and stuff like that. Like, I've heard many things, 8%, 20%, 15%. Like, I really want, and maybe we can hit on this the next time. What are we talking about there? Are we talking about all over Canada? Are we talking about all over Ontario? Are we talking about Southern Ontario? Or are we talking about Guelph specific or Toronto specific? Like, let's really break down those numbers for a second, because there is no sign in this area that anything is slowing down anytime soon. Mm-hmm. So if you're buying a home, you should get on it. Like, because in real time, people get
I mean, we've got headlines going back to 2008 that said there was a real estate bubble, like, and every year since.
Yeah, so it's not like,
and I mean, we've had to actually have those conversations with clients that we've been shopping with, saying like, listen, if this isn't it, if this house that we're standing in right now isn't it for you, then we need to find you something in the next 2 weeks, or you are going to be out of the market.
You're out of the market.
Like, you are
for what you're looking for.
Actively being priced out of the market right now. Mm-hmm. And that is absolutely not us trying to be high pressure salespeople. We're obviously not those people. It's just the reality, and it's at every price point too. This is not just first time home buyers or something like that. When people have an idea of what they're looking for in their price point, over time this year, it's like either your budget's got to change or your ideas do, because what you want is no longer existing at that price point.
And holding your breath and white knuckling the market until it cools down is not a strategy that works ever.
No.
That's my advice to you. Just get in there, get your people behind you, get the preparedness, do it. Just get it done.
Well, on that note, let us depart so we can white knuckle the rest of the holidays.
I'm so excited. I can't wait. Okay, Jamie Vasey, thanks for joining us today. Happy prediction.
Thank you. Enjoy the holiday season, and we will chat on the other side of the calendar flip.
All right. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.